errors or defects can occur at any time in a software development lifecycle. They can be trivial or catastrophic depending upon the consequences they bring. Whatever may be, it is utterly important for you to manage and monitor your tests. Hello everyone, I'm Ritika Auri from Management Bliss. In this video, I'll talk about Zephyr Squad. Zephyr Squad is an app when integrated with Jira software, helps you to manage your tests directly in Jira. So let's head forward and see what all you can expect to learn from this video. So we will learn in brief about BDD and TDD. We will learn how to create test cases, followed by how to create BDD features, how to import test cases, how to execute test cases, how to create test cycles and add test cases to the test cycles. And towards the end of the video, we will learn about some of the reporting features provided by Zephyr Squad, like test summary, test metrics, and traceability metric. Okay, so let's move forward and see what is BDD and TDD. Now, in the industry, there are different testing strategies, and BDD, TDD are among those. TDD is test-driven development, where tests are written for a certain piece of functionality and then code is written to make these tests pass. Now, what is BDD? BDD is behavior-driven development, that is nothing but the collaboration between business and technical teams for product development. BDD is the development done by user-centric approach, and user stories form the basis of BDD. Now, what are user stories? User stories are small, simple description of a feature told from users or customer's perspective. In agile setups, BDD starts from user stories. User stories is something that everyone working in an agile team should be aware about. If you want to know more about user stories, I've already created a couple of videos on user stories. You can go through those videos. You can find the link on the top right of the screen, and you can also find the links for these videos in the description. Now, coming back, in behavior-driven development, user stories are used by developers for product development and by testers to create automation test scenarios. With that knowledge, we can now move to our app Zephyr Squad and start exploring it. Now I am into my Jira software, and to integrate Zephyr Squad with Jira software, you have to click this drop down apps and here explore more apps. Since I've already installed this app, you are able to see it over here. But if not, then you have to go to this explore more apps option and write Zephyr and do a search. Here you'll be able to find Zephyr Squad. You just have to click on it, and since it's already added for me, it's showing added. Otherwise, you'll find a link over here on the top right of the screen saying try it for free. Once the app has already been installed, then for each project you will find Zephyr Squad option available on the left hand side of your screen. Now, as we can see on the left side of the screen, we have a couple of options available for us under Zephyr Squad heading. And here we can create a test, we can create a BDD feature, test cases, import test cases, and then it helps us in planning and execution, and it also helps in reporting the tests. So let's start with the very first thing, that is we will try and create a test case. So to create a test case, we have two options. One is on the left side of the screen under Zephyr Squad. Other one is, as you create different issues, you can click on this create button and select the issue type as test. Now the way we create different other issues in Jira, similarly we can create test case, and since Jira and Zephyr Squad are integrated over here, we can take all the benefits of Jira issues, like we can add a lot of information over here. For example, we can associate our test cases with different other issues, or we can define the versions, releases. We can specify priority, labels, sprint. We can even specify the epochs under which they can be created. And if we click on these three dots, we can do a lot more stuff to these test cases. Okay, so let's start by creating a test case. Let me give a summary to this test case. Testing the functionality of generate PDF button. Okay, so if it is under a particular component, I will add it over here. If any more attachments are required, I can go ahead and click this browse button and add those attachments. Then within the description, I can always go ahead and add some more details. For example, I've added that generate PDF button should provide the summary of the screen in a PDF document downloaded. Okay, then as I already told you, we can take the benefit of all the fields from Jira. We can go ahead and create some effective test cases. Let me also add a label. Okay, now I want to create it. Let's view this test. So our test has been created properly, but the information which should reside within the test case is still missing. That is adding the test steps. So before we say that we are ready with our first test case, we have to add the steps required over here. So for that, we can click on this icon which says test details. It will take us to test details section where we can add the test steps. Also, there's other two icons. One specifies what all different actions are available over here. That is, the actions are we can execute this test case or we can add this test case to a particular test cycle. We will see how to perform these actions very soon within this tutorial. So this is all about Zephyr action icon. Okay, now the third one is test execution. If we click on this icon, it will show us all the different executions that have happened for this test case. Okay, so nothing has happened yet, therefore it's showing no test executions data available. Okay, coming back, let's now add the test steps. So we can add different steps over here. Okay, the first step is to log in to the application. Within this test data column, you have to specify what all data will be required to execute this particular test step. Okay, so I'm adding it over here. I would need user ID and password. Now, test result column specifies that once you have taken this step, what is the result you are expecting out of it. If you think that you have correctly logged in all the details required for this particular step, you can just go ahead and click on this button. Else, if you want to discard whatever you have written, you have to click on this clear values option. Okay, so I'm adding it now. My first step has been added. Similarly, I'll go ahead and add different steps. Since I didn't require any user data for my second step, I have left it blank. Similarly, adding the third one. Now once I've added all the different steps, I can say that this test case is now ready to be used. Also, you can see there are many other things on the right hand side which you can go ahead and add the different details. For example, you can assign it to someone. Okay, so this was how we can create a test case. Quickly, we can perform one of the actions over here, that is to execute the test case. So we'll move on to the Zephyr actions section and click the execute button over here. Now, once you click the execute test case, it will ask you that do you want to execute it as an ad hoc test case or you want to execute it as a part of any existing or new test cycle. And if we choose this option, we have to specify different other things as well. For example, we can provide the detailing of the version, that is for which version we want to execute this test case. Okay, then we can create a new cycle here if we want, and we can also assign it to someone. Okay, for now, I just want to execute it as a single ad hoc test. So I'll select execute ad hoc and then just click on this execute button. Now it has moved us to the test execution page where we can provide different data related to the execution that has happened. For example, while execution, did we found any defect? If yes, then we can create a new defect over here. But if you know that that particular defect already exists in the system, we can also go ahead and type the ID of that defect. Okay. We can add valuable comments over here that can help others to understand the test better. Then different attachments can be added over here. For example, the screenshots which prove that after running this test case, the execution happened to deliver these results. Then we can just go ahead and mark the execution status, that according to us, what is the execution status of this test case? Has it passed, or it has failed, or is it work in progress, or you're not able to execute it? And that is why it's blocked. So we have to select from one of these options based on what has happened. Okay, now since it has been executed, on the top we can find this search executions option also. So we can just go ahead and click on this and it will show us that for this particular test case, what all executions have happened yet. Now if I again open this test case, on the test execution section, I can find what all executions have happened for this test case. So typically we have decoupled the test case with executions. That is, in Zephyr, we can create a test case separately and then we can use it for different executions. That can be ad hoc testing, that can be in different test plans or test cycles. Okay, I'll again go ahead and click Zephyr's code. And we'll now move on to how to create a BDD feature. To create the BDD feature, we have to click Create a BDD Feature option on the left-hand side of your screen under Zephyr's code. Okay, let's click it. Now the pop-up has been opened to create an issue which has a type story. So, as we already discussed, that BDD is a user-centric approach and hence user stories form the basis of it. So here we will be creating a user story. While creating a user story, we have to follow a certain format in which user stories are created. To know more, you can click on the link on the top right of the screen and I will also be pasting the link in the description below on how to create good user stories. Okay, so I'll create a user story over here. Here I'm saying that as an administrator, I want to ensure that the password has a special character so that it is secure. Okay, if it is associated to any specific components of the project, you should specify it through this components dropdown. Any more details we can provide through the attachment. Let's add the description now. In the description, ideally, you should be adding a lot of details, whatever are handy to describe this user story. For example, here I've added there should be special characters added to the password, else user should get an error message. Please include a special character in your password. So things like that should be there as a part of your description. Okay, if required, add other details. Now within the labels, I recommend you add good labels to identify and categorize your issues. Here, for example, I have created a label BDD feature. And to create labels, it's very easy. You can start typing and if the label is already there, you can use it. Else you can write your text and press enter. The label will be created for you. Now go ahead and click this create button. Our BDD feature has been created now. Let's see how it looks in the backlog. Okay, so it's here. I'll click on it. Let's open it in a new window. So BDD feature with our specified details have been created now. But this user story which we have created as a BDD feature is different from the other user stories which you create from the create button. Okay, so how is it different? It can carry additional information related to feature content with it. So we have an option to provide different scenarios related to this user story, which can later be used while doing automation testing. What you can do is you can specify your scenarios in this section and later on use it in your automation testing with Selenium or other tools. Once you have added the scenarios, you can download these scenarios in the form of a feature file. Also, you can import the feature file. So far, so good. Let's try and add a few scenarios and then we'll try downloading this feature file and see how it looks. Okay, I'm specifying the scenario and within this scenario I will add the steps. The steps should be in the form of given, when and then. I'll show it to you with an example. Given, new password should contain special characters. When user enters new password and presses the button reset password, then user should see the text create new password with at least one special character. Now given, when and then are all keywords used here. We can understand it like this: given that a new password should contain special characters. When, an example I've taken for explanation, that if someone enters this password string as the input for the password and then presses the button reset password, that particular user should see the text create new password with at least one special character. Now since this password string does not have any special character, that is the reason why the user should see this particular message. Okay, so we are done with adding our scenarios. I'll click on this tick option. Okay, the data has been saved now. Now let's try downloading the feature file. And we have an icon right here to download it as a feature file. So our feature file has been downloaded now. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so this is how our feature file will look. It has the information about the BDD story which we have created earlier. Then it will also create a separate test for this particular user story. And it has all the different scenarios over here. Then later on we can use this file for automation. Okay, let's have a look if CM49 has been created as a test or not. Okay, I'm closing it now and moving back to my Jira software. Okay, let's head towards our backlog, and CM49 has been created as a new test. Okay, let's open it in a separate tab. We can execute this test now and we can see that it is related to the BDD story which we have created earlier. So this is the difference between a BDD feature and a normal user story. Go back to our backlog. I'll just show you guys one of the user stories which are not created as a BDD feature. I'll just open it. And as we can see, we do not have an option for adding feature content in this user story. So this is how these two issues, though have the same issue type, are different from each other. Let's move to Zephyr Squad. Next, we'll head towards this option, that is import tests. So every time it's not possible for us to create the tests manually. Most of the times we already have tests created with us either in form of an Excel file or in some other tool which have to be imported here. So Zephyr Squad provides us with an option to import the tests from different sources. So let's go ahead and click on import tests. So in this video, we will be importing our tests from an Excel sheet. For that, we would require an Excel sheet in a specific format which is compatible to tests in Zephyr. Okay, so I've already created one format for this demonstration. Let me just show it to you. Okay, so this is the sheet which we will be using for importing our test cases to Zephyr. So what I have done is I have created a couple of columns over here which have the value similar to the fields which we had in the test. The first column which I have provided is test case name. Next is a hash symbol which specifies the number of steps of this particular test case. So if you see that this particular test has 3 steps associated with it. So we have defined these 3 steps with this particular test case. Similarly, if we have any test data for these test steps, we can provide it in one of the columns. Here in the test step is the description of that particular test step, followed by a column with test data, followed by a column with test results, and then I have specified a label with this particular test case, then I have specified the priority, then an assignee, and then the description of the test case. The assignee over here which I have taken is not a name, but I've taken an ID value of the user from Jira, which we can always go and find out from Jira. I'll show it to you how to get this value. For now, just to have the visibility of the test cases, let me add some borders. So these are the 3 test cases which I want to import to Zephyr. Also note that I have added only those fields which I required while creating the test case. But there are a lot of other fields which you can add to this sheet and provide more details to your test cases. You can add the specific columns with more data associated with these test cases. Okay, now let's go ahead and import this sheet. I am now to import test screen of Zephyr, and here we have an option of choose file. I'll click on this button, select your file, hit next. Here you have to specify from which row number you want to start the import. So since in our first row we had specified the names of the columns, we'll prefer to start the import from second row. So I'll make it second. Adding the discriminator test case name change. Importing all sheets because we have not selected multiple sheets where we can do a selective import. Hit next. Now we have to do mapping of the columns present in the sheet with the fields in Zephyr. Since we used assignee in our sheet, I'll map it with the assignee column in Zephyr. We are not using components, other values for which we haven't created columns in the sheet. I will leave them as it is. Map labels to labels, name to test case name, result I'm mapping to test result, test data to test data, step to test step, priority to priority. I think we are done over here. Okay, hit next. It asks, would you like to have a validation check before importing those sheets? I would prefer it, but if you don't want, you can click this button, skip validation. But for now, let's just go ahead and click on validate. Okay, so now our issues have been imported successfully as well. Now let's go back and check them in Jira. For that, I'll click on this option, test cases. And I can see that these 3 issues have been created successfully. Let's open one of them. Okay, yeah, the page has been opened and the 3 steps which we mentioned in our test case are also added here now. Now let's just open our sheet once again and verify things. For this demonstration, I'll verify the first test case. Okay, so the name is Generate PDF File Button Functionality Test, and it's this one which we have imported. It has 3 steps, and if we see over here in Zephyr, here these particular 3 steps are created correctly, and the data test result is also added successfully. Yeah. And other things like assignee, reporter, labels, medium are the same things that we have added over here. It has taken the reporter on its own, that is the one who is uploading the test cases. And as I told you earlier also, I have provided ID as an assignee, but it has taken the correct name with respect to that particular ID. So how do we get that ID is you go to settings, click on this cogwheel settings, okay, and here go to user management. You can type the name of a particular user you are looking for and click a search. Then in the below list you can find that particular user. Now if you click on that particular user, here in the URL you will be able to see the ID of that person, and that you can copy and add it to your sheet as an assignee. Okay, I'm going back to Zephyr. So now we have successfully imported our tests as well. Next, we'll talk about test cycles. Now, what is a test cycle? Test cycle is a container for tests that spans multiple projects and multiple users. Whatever and whenever a test gets executed inside a test cycle is recorded and saved so that it can be referenced in future. We will now see how to create those test cycles. For that, I am coming now to our planning and execution section. Here under this section, we have the cycle summary option. I'll just open that. It gives a good summary of whatever tests have happened within any particular test cycle. Okay, so for creating a new test cycle, here an option is provided, create new test cycle. I'll just click on it. Okay. So a new test cycle can be for a particular version or it can be unscheduled as well. Let's say I know that it's for a particular release, so I'll just go ahead and click that particular release. Okay. I can give any meaningful name for this test cycle. Let's say I want to create few tests to verify if the profile page in a particular application is working fine or not. Hence, I can give a meaningful name here. Okay. Within the description, you can provide the reason for which you have created this test cycle and any other details if you want. If you have other details, just go ahead and provide them, like the build you will be testing on, the environment you would prefer testing, and specific dates. Okay, let's save it now. And yeah, our test cycle has been created with whatever details we have provided till yet. It says that 0 executions have happened over here, and hence the total executions are also 0. Now we can go ahead and add different tests within this test cycle and then execute those tests. We can add the tests from this button, that is add tests, on the right hand side of the screen. Now if you want to add these tests manually one by one, then you can go ahead and select this individually option. As soon as you start typing something, the tests matching that particular text will appear and you can select one of them and add that particular test to your cycle. Okay, since it has been added now, we are able to see it in this list below. Okay, let's add some more. Now we have other options as well, like we can search for a particular filter and then we can add those tests from that filter. If you have already created a filter for particular tests, very good. You can just select that filter and the tests within that filter will be added. For example, I've already created a test case filter and I'm selecting it over here. As soon as I've selected it, it shows me what is the exact JQuery behind this filter. Also, before moving ahead, if you want to know more about filters, I've already created a video on that. You can go through that video. You can find the link on the top right of the screen, and I have also placed that link in the description. Okay, coming back, it says that 12 tests have been found in there. Okay, I'll just add it. And now the green bar shows that our tests have been added successfully. Let's just close it. And if we can see, we have a long list of tests within this test cycle now. Other options to add tests are from other cycles as well. For example, let's say I have already created a regression cycle and I want to add the test from there. Provide the name of the test cycle, provide other specific details and add the tests. And one more option is available for us, that is we can write a JQuery on the go, and then we can search. We will be able to see the results over here. Then we can either select all those tests or we can tick the ones which we want to add to the cycle. For example, I'll get few tests by writing a JQuery. So we already have some portion of the JQuery pre-written over here. That is the project and issue type which we cannot change. And then you can add to this particular JQuery and perform a search. So here the JQuery is that project equals to clinic management and issue type equals to, this is the ID for tests, and priority equals to highest. For that I've got only one test case. I'll select it and then add it. So this is another way of adding tests to a particular cycle. Now you can go ahead and start executing the test cases under this particular test cycle. Now once you have executed few test cases, then let's go ahead and see how it looks in the summary. So since we created it under a particular version, we can find the test cycle under that particular release. But in case you have created an unscheduled test cycle, then you have an option unscheduled over here. On expanding this particular section, you would be able to find the test cycles which are unscheduled. Now since we are looking for this test cycle, in the summary it gives us an idea of what has happened over here. Let's select it also. For example, it says that 55% of the test cases are still not executed, only 18% have passed, 18% have failed, and around 9% are work in progress. Okay, moving ahead, we can also search the test executions that have happened already. Let's go ahead and click this option. A good search platform is available for us over here where we can find the executions which we are looking for. For example, I'm looking for a particular project executions. I can select it over here. If I'm looking for all the projects, I have an option to select different releases, or if it's an unscheduled one, then I can also search based on cycle name and a couple of more options as well to explore. Okay, so you will be able to find all the executions over here. Now, the good thing is that you can anytime change the configuration of columns as well. Let's say I want to make some changes for these columns, then I can select this drop down columns and I can unselect a few columns if I don't want. For example, I don't have a folder name specified anywhere, so I'll just remove it from here and do an update, and I'm not able to see the folder name column now. So that is another good thing. With that, let's now move on to the reporting section. Here we can see the test summary, test metrics, and traceability metrics. We'll look in brief into all these three. Let's start with the test summary. As the name suggests, it is a summary page. This summary page provides the crux of different test executions, including the statuses and progress. Now here also I can narrow down my search and filter out only those test executions which I want to see. That is, let's say I want only the unscheduled ones, and if I want summary for only particular component, I can go ahead and select it. Same is the case that if I want to select my tests based on label, I can go ahead and do that. Here, if I move to the bottom of the page, then we have a graphical view of the executions that have happened over a particular period of time. Okay, I'm moving on to test metrics now. We all know that metrics are required for measurement and tracking purposes. Here, this page provides us with various metrics available for tracking, like daily test executions based on test cycles, test executions based on testers, and test executions by date. So a good graphical view of all the executions that have happened, we are able to see it over here. And again over here, if I want, I can narrow down my search to a particular version or the period of time when that executions have happened. So over a period of time, there will be a lot of executions happening within a project. We generally want to have a selection within a particular period of time. So I'll just change it. I'll do it for last 7 days. And again, I can select my required release or my required version name, or I can have all versions selected. So for now, I'll just keep it all versions, and daily test executions graph is showing me how many executions have happened each day and how many of them are pass, fail, or work in progress. Similarly, if I move to test executions by test cycle, it shows me a graph of executions based on different test cycles. Now, test executions by tester, since this is just for demonstration purposes, so it's showing that Management Bliss is the one who has performed these particular executions. But if there are multiple testers performing test executions, you would be able to see them over here in this particular graph. Then you can also see the executions happening for a particular date. It says in all there are 15 and how many are happening on a date basis. Okay. Now we also have a list of different executions along with some other good data, that is the test cycle that has happened, the test ID, what is the execution status of that particular test case, it has been executed by whom, and the execution date. So this is one page where we can come and find out the execution statuses based on different categories, different schedules, etc. Now I'll move to traceability metrics. Well, when it comes to testing and finding and logging bugs, we hear this term traceability metrics a lot of times. But what is it? Well, a traceability metrics is nothing but a traced linkage from requirements to the defects found in them and vice versa. That is, from the defects to the requirements from which they might have arrived. Okay, now there are two types of traceability metrics. One is forward traceability and one is backward traceability. Forward traceability is when we trace requirements all the way to the defects, while reverse or backward traceability is when we trace from defects back to the requirements. Now this is traceability metrics, but why is it required? Traceability metrics is used to ensure a proper test coverage. It keeps a track of all the defects found within a requirement. Also, traceability metrics can be used as one of the end of release documents to showcase that all the requirements have been met and they are defect free. That knowledge on traceability metrics, let's see how beautifully Zephyr Squad has put it over here. Now I am on to my traceability metrics page, and similar to other pages, a lot of filtering options are available over here. As per my project's need, I can just filter out my results and narrow down my search based on these filters already provided, be it issue type, be it versions, cycles, folders, and even execution status. And on the right hand side of my screen, I can see this drop down, that is report type, which gives me an option to either get a forward traceability or a backward traceability. By default, forward traceability has been selected and we are getting this below list based on forward traceability. Since we know that in forward traceability, we want to go from requirements till the defects. So here I would like to apply a filter based on issue type. Okay, so I would like to select stories and epics maybe, because currently in this project we are considering stories and epics as requirements. So I would like to select these over here, and based on this filtering, that is story and epic, we'll get the results in the first column, that is the requirement section, will only contain stories and epics now. So we can easily go in a flow from requirements to tests, executions, and then defects happening. For example, this test shows us that there was a requirement, tests happen for that, executions happen for that, and a defect has been found in it. And here in row number 3, we had a requirement, and then again tests happen for that, executions happen for that, but we didn't found any defect. So that is the kind of flow which we look in forward traceability metrics. In reverse or backward traceability metrics, we will go from defects to requirements. Let's have a look. I am selecting backward traceability now. And if we see, our column's position has changed over here. In the first column, we can see the defects now. So since I am only interested in looking from defects to the requirements, so I'll just select an issue type as bug. And once I'm done with that, I can see only bugs under the defects column. And we are able to see that for this particular defect, what all executions happened, what all tests happened, and what was the requirement here initially. So that is the kind of flow that happens in backward traceability metrics. So that was all I wanted to cover in this video. In this video, I have tried to cover most of the things which will be used while working on Zephyr's core. If there's anything you want to know about, do write to me in the comment section. If you like the video, please press like. Please do not forget to subscribe the channel, and thank you so very much for watching.